Broads Media.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broad. Some big Eagles news. CJ Gardner-Johnson will not be returning to the squad. He signed a one-year, $8 million deal with the Detroit Lions, $6.5 million guaranteed. And Jim Trotter is reporting the Eagles did have an opportunity to match, but they elected to decline. I'm surprised by that, if true. If you told me 3 weeks ago that you could bring him back on a prove-it deal and it would only be $8 million, sign on the dotted line today. I would sign on the dotted line today if you could do that. Well, 3 weeks ago, I guess I would sign on the dotted line, but you get my point. I would have done it in a heartbeat. So, it is a little bit confusing from that angle, but it's not that simple. There's so much more to it. Did CJ Gardner-Johnson feel disrespected by a previous offer made to him early in the offseason? Maybe. Now, I'm not believing that the Eagles offered a 3-year, $24 million contract with $17 million on the final season, because that was somewhat reported from the Eagles side that wasn't true and that wasn't the full-on contract that was offered. There was other things being thrown around that, according to the CBA, that wouldn't have even made sense. I don't have the CBA in front of me. I don't have the rule book to lay out every single possible contract and what does and doesn't work, but that's being thrown out there too. Here's what I do know. I'm thrilled that the Eagles elected to bring back Darius Slay and James Bradberry. If it was between Bradberry and CJ, Slay or CJ, or Slay and Bradberry, any sort of those two combinations, looking at strictly bringing back two of the three. So it could be CJ and Slay, CJ and Bradberry, or Slay and Bradberry. What would I want? It's what we have right now. CJ's a good player, and he stepped into a role playing safety after being a slot corner and was intercepting the football all over the field. 6 interceptions, missed time with injury. So to still have that many interceptions with that much time missed, it's impressive. He was a game changer back there, and he helped flip the field around to put Jalen Hurts and the offense in great positions to succeed. You are losing something there, but outside corners are way more important in my eyes. I would be in way more fear if there was just a hole next to Darius Slay. And if you think it's as simple as Howie Roseman drafting Witherspoon, drafting Gonzalez, they were never going to draft a cornerback. That's not what they do. That's not part of their DNA. So they would have drafted some sort of defensive lineman, and they would have plugged and played some veteran guy that they picked off the street. Instead of doing that with the outside corner, they're probably going to do that with the safety. I thought, before we saw moves happen, that it would be CJ and Slay, and then they would go find some sort of Steven Nelson type to get by with. Now, I think they're just going to look for that with the safety. Now, they signed Justin Evans. He had a lot of injury history, so he's missed some time. I don't know what he's going to become. I was thinking, believe it or not, that if CJ Gardner-Johnson was worth $8 million, that you can go land Jalen Mills. And there might be some of you thinking, no, bros, come on, please, let's not go down that path. Why would we bring back the Green Goblin? He played outside corner here in a system with Jim Schwartz where he was told to be on an island and do the best you can. And for what it's worth, I thought he did respectful in that job. Would he get beat on the double move? Absolutely. But with no safety help over the top, you were asking someone who had deficiencies in his game to be that guy. In a safety position, it's a completely different role. You wouldn't have to worry about one-on-one matchups with wide receivers with no safety help over the top. It's completely different. But my point is, that would be similar to Steven Nelson. It's just with the safety position. And if $8 million is what it costs for CJ Gardner-Johnson, if you can get Jalen Mills for $3 million, $4 million, that leaves $4 million that you didn't spend on CJ Gardner-Johnson that maybe you get another player with. Let's say with the next $8 million they spend, they get a safety and a linebacker. Now you're filling 2 holes with the money that you would have signed one player for. I'm not telling you I fully love letting him go and not trying to match the offer because I would have brought him back. I'm just saying let's see how this plays out. And I feel that CJ Gardner-Johnson felt like he got disrespected because he misplayed the market. Outside of Howie Roseman, let's say, hypothetically, that offer was correct. The 3 years, $24 million. It looked like it was backloaded, so that means 3.5 for the first 2 years. If nobody else offered anything, and no one was in the range that he thought he'd get 15, 16 million. I don't know what CJ thought he was getting. I don't know what his agency believed he was going to get on the open market. But if no one was willing to open up the checkbook and say, we want you here, how much will it cost? And it was clearly dead from that front. There wasn't that much communication. We barely heard any teams interested. Well, Howie Roseman's not disrespecting you. He's giving you what the market is, and he's actually setting the market. You just don't like it. And I get it. It could be really difficult because there's two ways to look at it. Zach Ertz got screwed over at the end by Howie Roseman and the Eagles, believe it or not. One of the best to ever do it. One of the best to ever put on the uniform. Got a bit screwed towards the end. Promised something, didn't work out that way. Now he's in Arizona. There's other guys, though, who do get helped out by the end of it. You help us out early, we'll help you out later. Lane Johnson, Kelsey, Jason Peters, Darius Slay and them figured it out. So there's another way where, okay, let me give them a little bit early, but I know they're going to have the respect for me at the end. I would feel a little cautious if I was a safety because we traditionally know how the Eagles devalue that position. Look at both linebacker spots. Look at both safety spots. Reed Blankenship and a big hole right now. Well, not really. I guess Justin Evans, Kayvon Wallace. These are the names that are competing for the secondary with the safeties. And linebackers, it's Nakobe Dean. So we were surprised that they drafted him when they did, but when a talent like that slips to the third round, you have to snag it. The value's just too high. Best player available, and by far he was. But we know they really don't like that linebacker spot. Although I guess you could make the argument that Davion Taylor was drafted in that range. So at that point, they felt it was necessary to do it too. What a disaster that was. But yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, where we are right now that it's starting to settle a little bit and you know that CJ's no longer returning, you're still in a damn good spot. It was very much a long shot to bring all three players back. And Slay clearly had a contract here still, but just knowing that at one point they were going to release him, they were going to cut him, they ended up not. It was never actually official, which should have been a sign for all of us when the Eagles didn't make the announcement at the time they were supposed to. If this is the way they went, so be it. How will they fill that hole? It's a great question. Here's another question. Will you lose a game, or will you be more in a tough spot because you didn't feel the need to call him back and to make a push to bring him back into that locker room? It's possible. I don't want to speculate. And also, just for closing thoughts on that question, will you lose a game because of that? Well, you got to keep in mind, will you win a game because you have another lockdown corner in James Bradberry right now? It's not just the fact that you didn't want CJ Gardner-Johnson, then you didn't do anything secondary. You brought in James. And there's a lot that you're juggling at the time that free agency begins. So you make your offer, and from there you still have to figure out bringing back Brandon Graham, getting Jason Kelsey back, bringing Fletcher Cox back, working with Darius Slay's money, and if you were going to bring back James Bradberry or not. We can't just wait for CJ to make his decision. We have other areas to go after. We have other things to do. We need to bring back some of our players. So I hate to break it to you, but the world doesn't revolve around you. Now, I'm not trying to speculate because there's no reason for me to think that he's a bad guy. A.J. Brown and some other teammates were pretty vocal on social media saying that, he's a great teammate, he's a great person, and all that. I am not telling you that he's a bad guy at all. I do think that there's some immaturity, tweeting, deleting the tweets, making this very public. If I'm in those shoes, I'm letting my agent do his work, and I'm staying the hell off of everything. I'm not putting out my opinion. I'm not tweeting emojis. I'm not subtweeting anything. I'm just staying quiet, and I'm going to let them do their jobs. And then from there, whenever I make my decision or whenever we come to an agreement or we end up moving on from one another, whenever I go to my next team, I'll make the statement of, hey, I'm really excited to join the Lions. I want to thank everybody in Philadelphia for the time we just had. It was a great season. These guys will be my brothers forever. It sucks that we lost in the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't have traded that experience for the world. Just something like that. I would stay quiet. Now, here's two teams, the New Orleans Saints and the Philadelphia Eagles, who look at him and realize that there's some talent there that they like. The Saints, though, had a lot of issues with the money. So they were in some cap hell, and they were trying to figure some things out. They elect to move on from him because they realized at some point he was going to want to get paid, but they didn't have the space to do it, so they move on. Now, the Eagles watch him perform at a really high rate, and they're like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to match $8 million. Why? Why? Is there something about that? The only thing I could see from the naked eye and from this viewpoint, which is all I have to judge, is immaturity. At the end of the day, though, if you're going to give me all those interceptions, you have to deal with that type of stuff. This is professional athletes. You're going to have divas. The organization dealt with T.O. before. The organization dealt with Donovan McNabb and T.O. and Andy Reid. When you can ball, you can ball. I also don't want to make this seem, though, that he's great. I think he's very good. You can still do a lot of great things without CJ, but just realizing how small the money is, you would have thought that Howie would think, so what if he's only here for one more year? Let him take advantage, let him thrive, and from there, he can go get whatever type of money he feels is necessary the next season. But we know they don't really value linebacker and that, which is safety. So we'll see what they do moving forward, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. Who's at fault? I got asked that earlier. Whose fault is this? I don't really think it's anyone's fault. I lean more towards the agent and CJ than I do the Eagles, just because I think they overplayed their hand. And I didn't really like the way the agency took it, letting everyone know the public information that is apparently not true, but regardless, if they're even tweeting out things that are not true, what are they doing? It didn't stop them from working with the Eagles because Justin Evans does have the same exact agency. But I just don't know what you benefit from. What's the positives from doing it? Because you were getting ridiculed so much for not staying with Philadelphia? With Philadelphia? I don't know. It's bizarre. But I'm thinking it's more their side. And I think they feel a certain type of way about it. Which, it is what it is. I don't know why you need to make all sorts of statements already that you feel the Detroit Lions have more than what the Eagles did last season, because that's a joke. It's similar to Javon Hargrave getting paid to go to the San Francisco 49ers and already saying that the NFC Championship game would be different if Brock Purdy didn't get hurt. You know what that tells me? That locker room is so damn soft. Kyle Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, they're still all bitching about it every single day, where he felt obligated to go there and have to fit in. Because you know what I would do if I was in Hargrave's shoes? We whooped your ass. Our defensive front was so fucking good that we crushed you. And you know what? I can't wait to do that to other opponents. I don't want to hurt people, but I would look around the room, look at Bosa, look at everyone else and be like, yo, Greenlaw, we could be studs next year. You know how we ate every single offensive line? We're going to do it here. It's almost like he's disrespecting Hassan Reddick. He's disrespecting Brandon Graham. He's disrespecting every single player on that line. Josh Sweat. Like, take some pride, damn it. Take some pride in what you did, because what you did was beautiful. What you did was fantastic from a craft standpoint. As a defensive line, you guys were the most explosive we have seen in years this league has ever literally seen. Ever seen. Like, you have been so good. Take pride in that. But he probably wanted to fit in and be part of the crew, because they're still crying about it. Didn't expect it from Javon. I'm not going to lie. Thought he had a little bit more swag than that. I expect something like that from CJ, to be fair. Because he just runs his mouth and does whatever. But I don't know if I can deal with the nonsense. Maybe that's where it all ended. I didn't feel like dealing with it anymore. Tweeting nonstop. Here's another thing that was brought up to me. He was just a product of the good defensive front and the corners in front of him. That's a little too aggressive. So I said he was very good. He's not upper echelon, elite. He's not something where it's, oh, man, I don't know how we're going to succeed. It's not that level. But you can't say he was just a product of the environment. That means one of these safeties need to be getting, if CJ had 6 in limited time, that means one of these safeties that they plug in there, because everyone else is going to be so phenomenal, needs to get 4 interceptions or 5 interceptions. We need someone to be a ball hawk and go out there and grab all these interceptions. And I don't want to hear that. Well, the defensive line isn't as good this season, so you can't necessarily make that same sort of judgment. No, he made plays out there. That was him. That was him reading the field. That was him seeing where the football's going. That was him reading the quarterback's eyes. That was him understanding. That was him watching film, and that was him being aggressive. It wasn't just because of the defensive line. No, there's a lot of realistic things to say about how everyone's in sync on a football field and how things do have a domino effect. Of course there's correlations with what Darius Slay can do, with what James Bradbury was doing. Taking away time and space for a quarterback forces them to be uncomfortable, which then they make an ill-advised throw. And then here comes CJ out of nowhere that can pick the football off. Yeah, that's real. But then Reed Blankenship better be able to do it if it's because of everybody else. I don't think you're going to see that same level of production. And I don't know if the front office cares. And what I mean by that is, how was Kansas City built? They had young, inexperienced safeties. Talented, but young and inexperienced. How did they win the Super Bowl? Well, it's that high-powered offense. All right, we'll keep chipping away with that. Isaac's no longer here. Cam Jurgens in the mix. It's a copycat league. They saw what Kansas City did and realized, well, we don't have to put that much money into it. If that $8 million goes towards another wide receiver, Zach Pascal goes to Arizona to join Jonathan Gannon. Don't know why. I would never play for that man, but whatever. You get your payday. You get your money. You move on. Now you have to look at some wide receivers. We wanted to upgrade Quez Watkins. I don't know if they do. Maybe he moves to the 4 and someone moves to the 3. How does he use that $8 million? That's going to matter to me when dissecting their decision to not match, which apparently happened. So we'll see. But all right, let's take some calls on it, shall we?
Just CJ leaving for the Lions, I'm not really too bent out of shape about it, because there's definitely a reason that Howie didn't match that contract. It's just a little contract. 1 year, I think $6.5 million or $8 million. We definitely had the ability to match it, but I'm just gonna let Howie cook, because there's a reason he did it.
Okay, so you're going with the mentality of, I trust Howie Roseman. This is Howie Roseman's offseason. He's done a lot of great things to this point. Let Howie cook. Fair. I have no problem. And normally, I stand on the side of Howie. Let him do his thing, right? And if the Eagles have a belief on this is how we do it, this is how we do our contracts, we have a lot of success by doing it this way. There are certain positions we like more than others. So this is how we're going to do things. It's hard for me to complain. I'm normally on the side of Howie. I understand, though, if you felt like they should have done more with the current circumstances. If he got 15 mil, 14 mil, and you wanted Bradbury, Slay, and CJ, and you would have been disappointed if they didn't do that, well, that's a totally different story. If they were offered a chance to match the $8 million and they elected to just look the opposite direction and not even sniff it and not even give them the time of day, I think that's fair to question. I do. I'm normally on the side of Howie Roseman, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here. But it's fair because it's a deal that, what's it hurt you? Here's something that maybe you can consider. You know they like defensive line, but they're also they're loyal. Loyal. I was going to say faithful, but no, they're loyal. Depending on who it is. I think the Zach Ertz thing ended a little weird. The Malcolm Jenkins one, too. Maybe there was a little more with Malcolm Jenkins, so there's another example, although you always say you'd rather be early than late with someone, but I was a big fan of Malcolm Jenkins and what he provided here. But anyway, regardless, the 1-year, $10 million deal for Fletch, would you have rather given that to CJ and then you figure out something else with your defensive line, knowing that they're probably going to want to look to draft one? Maybe Carter is available around 7 because the quarterbacks are going to go early, so that allows Carter to maybe flirt in that 6, 7, 8 range. Bang, Howie Roseman puts another draft pick on the table, moves up and lands an absolute stud, a game wrecker, someone who will be a force for you. You have Jordan Davis, you have Milton Williams, and you kind of roll with the punches there with Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham. So remove Fletch from the situation, and then you have C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Now, knowing their beliefs, we want to build within the lines. That's why we always win. That's why we dominate teams. It's hard for me to pretend like that's not real. I prefer Fletch, no CJ, than CJ, no Fletch. Even though they're going to recycle or replenish the defensive line many different ways because that's all we ever know. It's just an interesting different way to kind of look at it. But our first caller likes the idea of letting Howie do his thing. There's a reason behind it. Maybe there is. Or Howie does 8 things well and then swings and misses on one. It's very possible. You take that any day of the week. You take that winning percentage. It's a baffling one, though. This one's not as easy to digest. Seeing some money thrown around the league, you realize you're never going to compete with that. You were never going to be able to compete with the 49ers offer for Javon Hargrave. You just weren't. So that is an automatic write-off. This one is a bit different. All right, next call.
Hi, folks. Just wanted to let you know that we here in Kansas City, we rerun your podcast from the Saturday before the Super Bowl.
What's this?
Over and over and over again.
What is this?
Just for a good laugh.
No.
What do you think of that? We're still laughing. I think we've replayed it, 22 times at least. Thanks for the entertainment.
Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? I don't even know where to go from here. Do I end the show? Wow. All right. That hurt. Let me know your thoughts on CJ.